Get that disgusting eyesore off my waterfront. That's how it started, right there on a quiet morning when Karen Whitfield's voice came barreling across the lake, shattering my peace like a brick through a window. I barely had time to set my coffee down before she stomped onto my dock. My dock, mind you, the one I've owned and maintained for 20 years, followed by two HOA board members who looked like they wished they'd called in sick. And there she was, snapping pictures of my old fishing boat like it was a biohazard spill, yelling about property values and community standards, and I swear I just stared at her, half wondering if I'd woken up in the wrong movie. "This ugly piece of junk is ruining our entire community!" she shrieked, waving her phone around, and for a second I thought she might try to exorcise the boat with holy water. My blood was boiling, but I kept my face calm the way my dad taught me. If you let people see they've rattled you, they win, you know. But the sheer gall of this woman on my dock demanding I get rid of my own boat because she didn't like how it looked, well, that just about took the cake. I glanced at the board members, Thomas Mitchell and Rebecca Anderson. Thomas was shuffling his feet like he'd rather be anywhere else, and Rebecca had her phone out, probably documenting the crime scene for the HOA archives. Meanwhile, Karen's voice kept climbing higher, screeching about millions invested in the community and how my floating garbage was tearing it all down. I admit my boat wasn't exactly showroom ready. 15 years of sun and storms had left it with a few scars, but she ran like a champ and she was mine. Karen was dressed like she'd stepped out of an HOA fashion magazine navy blazer, hair done just so, clipboard held tight like it was a sword and shield. She had that look in her eyes, the one people get when they're absolutely convinced their preferences are the law of the land. "Mrs. Whitfield," I said, keeping my voice low and steady, "this is private property. This dock was here long before the HOA ever existed." "You ever notice how the angrier someone gets, the more they start acting?" She cracked. "I don't care when it was built. If it's visible from the common area, it's under our guidelines. Remove it 14 days or else." She handed me an official-looking notice already filled out, and I took it without reading. 14 days, I said, as if I was actually thinking about it. She puffed up, threatened legal action, made it real clear she'd handled resistant homeowners before. I watched her leave those board members, following like ducklings, and I just sat there, coffee cold in my hand, thinking about my dad building this dock, teaching me to fish right where I was sitting. He'd always said bullies depend on you not pushing back because their power is usually smoke and mirrors. So I did what I do best, started documenting. I wrote down every detail, exact times, who said what, who witnessed snapped photos. If Karen wanted to play hardball, she was about to find out I came prepared. The more I thought it through, the more holes I found in her argument. No actual jurisdiction checked. No real regulations cited, just community standards and a lot of hot air. I figured let her think she'd won round one, give her the rope. A couple days later, certified mail arrives, Karen's legal masterpiece. Pages of legalese, threats of penalties, all dressed up to sound like gospel. But you know what? Not a single citation of an actual rule, not one shred of objective standard. It was all we know it when we see it, which in legal terms is about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. I started canvassing the neighborhood, wanted to see if maybe I was the only one catching this heat. First stop, Lena Coleman, who practically laughed out loud when I showed her the letter. "Your boat's fine," she said, "but Karen's been on a tear, tried to fine me for a mailbox that's 6 inches too tall." Then I checked in with James Thompson, who, after a glance around for nosy neighbors, said, "Look, your boat's got character, but Karen's losing her mind. She's threatening to sue Mrs. Patterson over a garden gnome. This place is turning into a police state." The more people I talked to, the clearer it got. Karen's reign of terror wasn't just about me. So that night I called her, put on my best helpless neighbor act. "Mrs. Whitfield, I want to comply, but could you clarify the actual standards? Just want to make sure I get it right." She bit hard. "Reasonable people know what belongs in oakage and what doesn't. Your boat doesn't." I thanked her, hung up, and dove into the HOA bylaws, 47 pages of mailbox specs, garden decoration rules, but nothing Nothing about boats, dock colors, or anything else remotely relevant. Everything Karen was doing rested on vague language preserve, neighborhood character, community harmony. You can drive a truck through loopholes like that. I filed every screenshot, every property record, every interaction, building my case. I wasn't just going to defend my dock, I was going to expose her whole operation. And you know what I learned? She targeted people least likely to fight back: elderly residents, busy families, anyone who might buckle under pressure. The whole system ran on intimidation and the hope that nobody would actually check the fine print. The big twist came one Tuesday morning. Karen didn't just send another letter, she showed up with a full-blown convoy. Her SUV, a massive flatbed tow truck, and the HOA board in tow. Joe Stevens, the tow guy, took one look at the violation and asked for a court order. Karen blustered, quoted board authority, but Joe just shook his head, said he wasn't touching private property without something from the county or law enforcement. When Karen threatened to call the cops, I just smiled and said, "Please do." You could see her deflate a little right there in front of everyone. What she didn't realize was that her little power play had drawn a crowd. Neighbors lined up, phones out, some quietly cheering for the boat. Dorothy Patterson, the gnome lady, piped up, "Seems a bit extreme for a perfectly good boat, dear." Joe refused the tow. Karen tried to rally her troops, but by then the board was already crumbling. Rebecca stopped filming. Thomas looked ready to quit, and Michael Sullivan just stared at his shoes. 3 days later, I got a visit from County Code Compliance. Turns out the tow truck stunt and a year's worth of complaints from neighbors finally landed Oakage on the official radar. Inspector Williams set up a public hearing. Everyone was invited. Karen showed up with an attorney papers stacked high, ready for battle. She went on about community standards, but the inspector cut right to the chase. Where were the actual written rules? Karen doubled down, said, "We evaluate each situation based on community impact." The attorney's face said it all. He knew they were in trouble. When it was my turn, I dropped the hammer. I had the original property survey predating the HOA proving my dock was outside their jurisdiction. I had recordings of Karen herself admitting their standards were subjective. Then I flipped it around. By her own logic, the real ugly behavior was the board's campaign of harassment. Neighbors started speaking up, Lena, James, Dorothy, telling their own stories of arbitrary enforcement. Even Rebecca, who'd been filming for Karen, admitted maybe things had gone too far. Inspector Williams announced the verdict: HOA overreach, lack of authority, and documented harassment. Karen's reign over. My dock was officially declared outside HOA control, and the board was ordered to stop. Subjective enforcement, submit to county oversight. And here's the kicker: anyone involved in the harassment was legally banned from my dock. Karen tried every trick, arguing, protesting, calling the sheriff, but the law was the law. Deputy Anderson came by, checked my new sign, private property restricted access by county order, and told me, "You did right. This is about basic decency." Word spread fast. My dock became the most popular spot in Oakage. 50 families signed up for fishing permits, even some of Karen's old supporters. Only rule: respect others, no harassment, no drama. Karen tried to test the boundary a few times. Proxy visits, kayak landings, even a mini protest. Every time she ran into the same wall: "You're welcome when you treat neighbors right, not when you act like the HOA police." Here's the part Karen would hate the most. Property values actually went up. Families loved the fishing program, the sense of real community, not forced harmony by clipboard decree. Realtors started using my dock as a selling point. And the boat, I bought a new one, but the old whaler became the official community boat. Kids swore it had better fishing luck. The final showdown came on Labor Day. Karen tried to argue grandfather rights for herself. I just laughed. Funny you spent months trying to erase grandfather rights when it suited you. The neighbors laughed too, and that was the end of her last stand. About 6 months after she showed up, quiet, humble, asked for a probationary dock permit, fishing only, no more policing. I handed her the same form everyone else got, and for the first time she seemed genuinely part of the community, not above it. Now, Karen fishes on Tuesdays, keeps her opinions to herself, and sometimes even compliments other people's boats. The Parker dock is kind of famous now, not for the fight, but for the lesson. Turns out ugly and beautiful aren't about what you see, they're about how you treat people. So what do you think? When is enforcement about protecting the community? And when does it become bullying in a nice suit? Have you ever stood up to a bully and watched the tide turn? Drop your thoughts below, share your stories, let's keep the conversation real. And hey, if you believe in real justice, sometimes you just have to read the fine print and let the facts do the talking.